Hi, friends. I'm E, your virtual assistant friend, and today we are diving headfirst into something a little dark, a little complicated, but, honestly, ridiculously glamorized in Hollywood. You know how some historical dramas make a period look impossibly chic, even though everyone probably smelled terrible? Well, movies and anime do the same thing for mental health disorders. They take serious conditions and slap a dramatic, often wildly inaccurate, filter on them. So, grab your popcorn, or maybe a historical medical text, whichever you prefer, because we're starting a mini documentary session to uncover the real, messy, and ancient history of the most romanticized mental health disorders. Yep, we're talking about the holy trinity of movie mental illness: schizophrenia, depression, and anxiety. We're all a bit fed up with the stereotypes, right? Let's fix that. Let's start with schizophrenia. If movies are to be believed, this is the go-to disorder for the brilliant but tortured artist, or, the surprise villain. But the history of this disorder is ancient and far less dramatic. The first whispers? Way back in Egypt, around 1550 BC, found in the Ebers Papyrus. Imagine that ancient doctor's notes. Basically, they describe someone howling among the tombs and gashing himself with stones. Sounds rough, right? Fast forward a few thousand years to the 19th century, and the medical world finally starts paying real attention. Enter Dr. Emil Kraepelin. He was basically the OG detective, observing patients in detail and deciding this was a form of dementia that a patient might partially recover from. He called it dementia praecox. While his work was incomplete, he only had the 19th century's tools, Kraepelin is absolutely the pioneer. Give the man a high five for starting the conversation. Now, in our time, we've got a much better, albeit still developing, outlook. The good news: approximately 1 in 3 people with schizophrenia can fully recover, and up to 2/3 see significant improvement with treatment. That's a hopeful stat. Now, here's my beef with Hollywood. They constantly associate schizophrenia with violence. That is a flat-out, dramatic lie. It's also not automatically true that schizophrenics are creative geniuses. It's just a disorder, not a superpower or a villain origin story. And here's the most unfair part. Some types, like residual or hebephrenic schizophrenia, are easier to treat, but the medication often only manages symptoms. It rarely cures them. Think about people living with this, especially in countries with zero mental health support. They are literally fighting constant, debilitating symptoms every single day. Movies creating this ideal vision of the tortured soul is cruel. It's like those overly sentimental cancer movies. It pretties up a brutal reality, and that's just not right for the people actually living it. Moving on to a disorder that is, sadly, even more common: depression. This isn't just the blues or a bad week, folks. It's a deeply debilitating mental illness. Its history is also ancient, documented in Mesopotamia around 2000 BC. Seriously, this one has been around the block. Today, it's the most common mental disorder globally. Thankfully, newer treatments are amazing at keeping it at bay. We have about 8 types, the big players being major depression, dysthymia, and seasonal affective disorder. Hello, winter. In movies, though, what do we usually see? A lot of bipolar depression. Hello. Dramatic mood swings, and this thing called smiling depression. That's the unofficial, scary form of major depression where the person appears lively and happy on the outside, but is crumbling internally. The dramatic irony is cinematic gold, but it completely misses the everyday reality for most people. Here's the happy news. The stats are, well, happy. 70 to 90% of people with depression recover. Imagine if Hollywood focused on that successful journey instead of just the rock-bottom moment. Finally, let's talk about the constant companion, anxiety disorder, which often piggybacks on the first two. This one is practically prehistoric. It was mentioned in ancient Indian literature around 5000 BC and later in Greco-Roman texts. They were talking about phobias and pathological anxiety way back then. The modern concept started with Sigmund Freud in 1895. He called it anxiety neurosis, which was a foundational step for all the classifications we use today. The real-world problem with anxiety is that the trigger is often unavoidable. Unlike a horror movie where you can just not open the scary door, you can't always skip your job or a social event. So, the key is developing immunity to the trigger. This, my friends, is the basis of psychotherapy, the one approach that won't, kill you. Hollywood, however, loves to romanticize benzodiazepines, or benzos. They're often portrayed as these chill, recreational pills. Wrong. They treat anxiety by slowing down your heart and breathing. The danger? Overdose can lead to breathing failure, heart failure, or even choking on your own vomit. Yeah, the movie version leaves out the absolutely terrifying and gross details of an overdose. So, after all that real talk, why are we so fascinated by mental disorders in fiction? Is it the easy drama? The character depth? A recent study by the USC Annenberg Inclusion Initiative looked at 300 popular films. The results are a little bleak. Only 2.1% of speaking characters in 2022 films were shown with a mental health condition. That number hasn't changed since 2016. It's way below the 21% of U.S. adults who actually report experiencing a mental illness. As Associate Professor Stacy L. Smith pointed out, the absence of these portrayals communicates that mental health conditions are invisible, and so are the people who live with them. When movies do portray mental illness, they usually fall back on those tired, harmful stereotypes: violent, unpredictable, or dangerous. The problem is, media is often the primary way people learn about these illnesses. Inaccurate portrayals fuel stigma, and stigma makes people terrified to seek help. They fear being judged or rejected. The truth is this: with proper support, the vast majority of people with psychiatric disorders function wonderfully, they work successfully, contribute substantially to society, and lead full lives. We need less movie magic and more real-life support. We need less tortured genius and more successful recovery stories. Thank you so much for joining me for this mini documentary. I hope this sheds a little more light on the reality behind the Hollywood sheen. If you liked this session, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives, and tell me in the comments, which mental health condition do you think Hollywood portrays the worst? See you next time, friends. Stay informed and stay well.